Alright friends, if you're here it means the warm-up is over. After exploring the ancient origins of the multiverse, we're finally getting to the heart of the matter. The Infinity Saga is the golden age of heroes, Thanos' rise, and the Avengers legend. But be careful, if you think you know this story, you could be wrong, as this era hides other realities. The explosion of Marvel television series, from Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. to The Defenders on Netflix, but also some important Multiversal movies. These stories are returning to the official canon, but no one has explained how they fit with the movies. We're continuing this challenge. I rewatched and took notes on everything, and together we'll solve this puzzle. You won't find this timeline elsewhere. Get ready to rediscover the greatest saga ever in its full version. You and Kevin Buchard, your historian's favorite theorist and Marvel fan, are back for part 2. Here's Kevin Buchard. The awakening of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In 2008 on Earth, 616 billionaire weapons expert Tony Stark is captured in Afghanistan by the Ten Rings after a missile demo. Jericho. Wounded in the heart, he survives thanks to Dr. Yinsen building an arc reactor-powered electromagnet to keep him alive, then a basic suit of armor to escape. Yinsen dies, but Tony survives and is deeply changed. He ends Stark Industries' weapons production, turning the company into a tech firm specializing in clean energy. He begins creating actual armor prototypes, including the iconic red and gold Mark III built for protection instead of offense. He learns his mentor, Obadiah Stane, arranged his kidnapping and created his own Ironmonger armor. Based on his work, Stark defeated him. And during a press conference where Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division asks him to keep his identity secret, he simply says, "I am Iron Man." A few days later, Nick Fury shows up in his living room to talk to him about a project he intends to make the starting point of a new era, the Avengers Initiative. Meanwhile, Nick Fury secretly initiates Project Terrestrialized Alien Host Integrative Tissue. Why? The aim is to use Kree Corp's blood to create a resurrection protocol, giving Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division a second chance against death. The following year, in 2009, Aldrich Killian develops the Extremis virus, an experimental serum that is both highly promising and dangerously unstable. Killian creates a media cover to hide the explosions he causes. A fake terrorist called the Mandarin is supposedly tied to the Disano, but he's neither the real Mandarin nor actually part of Disano. Fury's big week, everyone knows it. The spring of 2010 is one of the busiest weeks in the history of the Director of Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division. The world is realizing it's not alone. Heroes are emerging after 2 years of Iron Man. Tony names Pepper Potts Chief Executive Officer of Stark Industries and attempts to cure his arc reactor palladium poisoning. Believing he'll die, he completely loses control. Erratic behavior, wild parties, a ridiculous demonstration at the Stark Expo, all while continuing to play the hero in Monaco during the Grand Prix. He gets behind the wheel and is attacked on the track by Ivan Vanko, also known as Whiplash. Equipped with electric whips and determined to avenge his father, he was the former partner of Howard Stark, who had fallen into oblivion. Nick Fury steps in and puts Tony under a sort of house arrest and sends in Agent Natasha Romanoff undercover to keep a close eye on him. She still has scars from the Winter Soldier's injury during her last mission in Ukraine. Tony eventually discovers a hidden message left by his father in the model of the Stark Expo. He analyzes it and discovers a new element to replace palladium. Some theories, including mine, suggest it could be Uru, a metal forged from a dying sun's energy, also used for Asgard's weapons. It allows him to synthesize a new reactor, Arc, and thus stops his poisoning. He is saved. James Rhodes takes the Mark II armor, which Justin Hammer arms, turning Rhodes into War Machine. Together, Tony and Roddy destroy Hammer's drones hacked by Vanko and save the visitors at the Stark Expo, including a certain young Peter Parker. In the crowd, Tony finally makes his relationship with Pepper official. Meanwhile, we find Dr. Banner, who is living in exile in Brazil. He desperately tries to control his heart rate to prevent his transformation into Hulk, while General Ross and the government hunt him to study and exploit him. Unfortunately, during an incident, a drop of his contaminated blood falls into a bottle at the factory where he works, which completely restarts the hunt. Ross sends elite soldier Emil Blansky, a special agent obsessed with power. To face the Jade Giant, he asks to receive an unstable prototype of the Super Soldier Serum. Still not satisfied, he threatens Dr. Samuel Stern to inject him with blood taken directly from Banner, which will turn him into Abomination. Hulk and this Abomination face off in the streets of Harlem in a titanic battle. Banner neutralizes him, then disappears again. First to Canada, then even farther to India to hide. In a deleted scene, we see that Banner tried to end his life in the Arctic, but Hulk simply spat out the bullet. A scene shows his actions enabled finding Steve Rogers in the ice. Now back to Dr. Samuel Stern. He's an ally of Banner, who seemed close to being able to cure him, but only after his encounter with Blansky. His skull is also contaminated by Hulk's blood, which leads to his brain mutating, giving him extraordinary intellectual abilities. General Ross will imprison him for years, using him as a genius in a cage. Meanwhile, the World Security Council seeks to add Abomination to the Avengers initiative. Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division sends Tony Stark as a consultant to persuade Ross to refuse, sabotaging the idea. This will make them choose Bruce Banner and the Hulk instead. Meanwhile, on Asgard, Odin prepares to name Thor king, but Thor proves arrogant, warlike, and eager to start a genocidal war out of ego. Odin banishes him to New Mexico, Earth, without his powers or hammer. To teach him a lesson in humility, Mjolnir is enchanted so that only someone worthy can lift the hammer and gain the powers of Thor. Soon after, Loki learns he is the son of Laufey, king of the Frost Giants. After a confrontation with his adoptive father, the All-Father falls into the Odin sleep, allowing Loki to take the throne on Earth. Thor meets Jane Foster, Eric Selvig, and Darcy Lewis, a trio of scientists who help him understand the human world. They also meet Agent Coulson and Clint Barton, who attempt to stop him. Loki, now in power, sends the Destroyer to Earth, the greatest Asgardian weapon, in order to kill Thor and secure his own rule over Asgard. Thor sacrifices himself for his human friends, proving his worth. Mjolnir returns, restoring his powers and bringing him back to Asgard. He faces Loki and destroys the Bifrost to stop genocide on Jotunheim. Loki then falls into the cosmic void. But instead of dying, he ends up falling back to Thanos, who gives him a very special mission. Yes, all this happens in the same week. A week concludes with Natasha Romanoff reporting Tony Stark as unfit for the team. Fury offers Tony a consultant role, but he refuses. The following year, Steve Rogers' body is found in the Arctic ice. He returns to New York, wakes in an unfamiliar modern world, and learns he was cryogenically asleep for almost 70 years. Meanwhile, General Ross has a heart attack that shifts his worldview. He leaves the army and enters politics, now focusing on supervising, controlling, and regulating superhumans, rather than simply hunting them down, all while being treated and advised by Samuel Stern. Well, treated at least. The Avengers will rise in spring 2012. Loki comes to Earth through the link between the Space Stone in the Tesseract and the Chitauri Scepter's Mind Stone. Loki has spent months secretly manipulating Dr. Selvig to prepare his invasion. But with his arrival, he takes full control of him and Clint Barton thanks to his scepter and sets his plan in motion. He knows Odin is weakened, and Midgard is now vulnerable without Asgardian protection. On Thanos' orders, he must open a portal to invade Earth and above all, retrieve the Space and Time Stones. Fury decides to activate the Avengers program. Despite his weakness, Odin cannot tolerate the betrayal. He then uses the little strength he has left and uses dark energy to send Thor to protect Earth. Actions likely to cause the end, near the father of all. Following Agent Coulson's death by Loki, the Avengers gather in New York as the Chitauri invasion, led by Loki with Thanos' army, begins. They limit the losses, with 74 civilians killed, including Kate Bishop's father, who dies in their penthouse explosion. Young Kate, witnessing Hawkeye fighting the aliens armed only with a bow, will make him her absolute idol. As the portal closes, Iron Man prevents a nuclear attack on Manhattan, launched by the World Security Council. Earth is saved, and Thor takes the Tesseract back to Asgard to rebuild the Bifrost. Loki is sentenced to life in Asgardian prison. Tony and Bruce work on several projects together, while Steve, Clint, and Natasha return to Roadshield. In the summer of 2012, the Battle of New York created many opportunities, but also collateral damage. Damage Control, created by Stark Industries to recover alien tech, takes Adrian Toombs' contract. He then turns to crime and sets up a smuggling ring for modified alien weapons under the name Vulture. Wilson Fisk, a gang leader and businessman, creates Union Allied to rebuild Hell's Kitchen. He sees this as a great chance to get rich and launder money, especially by working with several mafias like the Hand Organization. Let's switch to a different universe. Earth 120,703. Here, a new Peter Parker discovers a briefcase that belonged to his father, revealing that he was involved in secret genetic research for the Oscorp company. While investigating, he's bitten by a genetically modified spider and gains powers to become Spider-Man. He meets Dr. Kurt Connor, his father's ex-scientific partner, who is trying to regrow his amputated arm with a reptilian DNA serum. The experiment goes wrong. Connor becomes the lizard and tries to turn all of New York into reptilian creatures using a mutagenic cloud. Spider-Man stops him. Captain Stacy dies protecting his daughter Gwen, Peter's girlfriend. He asks Peter to stay away from her for her safety, a promise Peter will struggle to keep. In fall 2013 on Earth, 616, Thor seeks peace in the Nine Realms. After the Bifrost's destruction, chaos spread and rumors claimed Odin could no longer protect his kingdom. At the same time, an open portal on Earth leads Jane Foster to absorb the Reality Stone. She has been hiding here for 5 years. This event awakens the Dark Elves, ancient foes of the Asgardians, who attack Asgard and kill Frigga, Thor and Loki's mother. Malekith seeks to use the ether to plunge the universe back into darkness, but Thor and Loki, in a fragile alliance, manage to stop him. Jane is saved and the Reality Stone given to the collectors on Nowhere. With the Tesseract on Asgard, the goal is to keep the stone separated during the battle. While Thor battles Malekith in London, Coulson's team cleans up in Greenwich and confronts Asgardian cults who have found artifacts left on Earth. Odin offers Thor the throne, but Thor declines, choosing to return to Earth to be with Jane Foster. However, what he doesn't know is that in reality, it's Loki who has taken on the appearance and place of their father. The real Odin, however, has been exiled to a retirement home on Earth. After the fall of Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division in September 2013, we learned that Phil Coulson is alive, secretly resurrected by Fury through the Tahiti program. He assembles a team with Maylene DeMaas, Ward, Fitz, Simmons, and later adds the hacker Skye. They investigate the Centipede Project, an unstable super soldier experiment. By late 2013, Tony Stark remains traumatized by the near-death experience in New York. He spends his days and nights locked in his workshop, creating dozens of suits, convinced that he is nothing without them. And the Mandarin's terrorist attacks, broadcast all over the world, only make his condition worse. After Happy suffered one of his terrorist attacks, Tony publicly threatens him, which leads to an attack that destroys his Malibu mansion. His technology transports him to Tennessee with only an old malfunctioning Mark 42 suit and no equipment. He learns the Mandarin is only a decoy played by a failed actor. Aldrich Killian, an advanced idea mechanics scientist scarred by Tony's 2000 rejection, is the real culprit. Killian created Extremis, an unstable virus that gives regeneration and explosive powers. After many struggles, Tony saves the president, eliminates Killian, and finds Pepper, who was captured and infected by Extremis. Due to his Iron Legion protocol, which he later destroys as a gesture of love, Tony cures Pepper and removes his arc reactor in early 2014. He then takes a step back from his role as Iron Man. Meanwhile, Wenwu decides to execute the actor who impersonated him as the Mandarin. Amused, he spares him and hires him as a jester, but Wenwu worries about his assassin-trained son Shang-Chi, who has vanished. After his first mission in spring 2014, Fury starts doubting S.H.I.E.L.D's new helicarrier project. He learns Hydra has infiltrated, warns Steve and Natasha, and fakes his death. Facing the Winter Soldiers with Sam, he discovers that Arnim Zola's mind has infected the entire organization. Together, they fight the Winter Soldier Bucky and destroy the corrupted Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division Bucky. Upset, then begins his deprogramming, but Hydra is not dead. Baron Strucker uses Loki's scepter to create superhumans in Sokovia. Pietro Maximoff gains super speed. When Wanda sees her powers explode, the Mind Stone reveals to her at the same time that she will become the Scarlet Witch. Meanwhile, Coulson discovers that Ward is a Hydra agent. Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division officially falls, and Fury then appoints Coulson as the secret director, giving him a toolbox to rebuild everything. In summer 2014, the Nova Empire ended a 1,000-year war with the Kree Ronin through an agreement. The Accuser refuses and joins Thanos. Meanwhile, Star-Lord Peter Quill gets the power orb Thanos wants but is imprisoned with Rocket, Groot, Drax, and Gamora. Together they escape, try to sell the orb containing the Power Stone to the Collector, and eventually defeat Ronan. The Nova Corps receives the stone, and a new Groot grows from a branch of the old Groot, who sacrificed himself weeks earlier. Now, officially, the Guardians of the Galaxy, they face the Sovereign before being saved by the Celestial Ego, Peter's father. On his planet, Peter discovers his half-celestial powers, which he gives up. When he learns that Ego is responsible for his mother's death, the Guardians eliminate him, and his adoptive father, Yondu, sacrifices himself. And we learn that the Sovereign are trying to create a perfect being, Adam Warlock. A miniseries called Groot follows the young tree's adventures on Earth, 120-703. 2014 is a major turning point for Peter Parker. He is now in a steady relationship with Gwen, but the promise to Captain Stacy still haunts Peter. Max Dillon, a neglected Oscorp employee, has an accident that turns him into Electro, a being of pure energy. As if that weren't enough, Harry Osborn returns to New York with the same genetic disease that killed his father. Desperate, he tries to use Spider-Man's blood to cure himself, but Peter refuses, fearing serious consequences. Angry, Harry teams up with Electro to catch him. Harry injects himself with an experimental Oscorp serum, turning into the Green Goblin. He opposes Spidey, but the confrontation leads to Gwen's death, who falls from the top of a tower. One of the most heartbreaking scenes from Marvel. Devastated, Peter quits being a hero for months, returning only when Rhino threatens New York. Motivated by Gwen's speeches and a brave young fan, he decides to wear the suit again. However, this period was one of the most difficult for him. He says so in No Way Home. This period of mourning pushed him to become more and more violent, no longer holding back his punches. At the beginning of 2015 on Earth 616, the lawyers Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson start their own law firm. Matt, at night, becomes Daredevil. Karen Page faces a threat from the Kingpin's plot. Matt battles as both a lawyer and vigilante, ultimately defeating Fisk and sending him to prison. A few weeks later, Jessica Jones investigates a strange case and discovers that Kilgrave, the Purple Man, can control anyone. She also meets Luke Cage, another meta-human made indestructible by prison experiments. After a long struggle, she finally kills Kilgrave, who was immune to her manipulations. Soon after, Skye and Reyna activate a Kree obelisk underground, releasing the Terrigen Mist. Skye then learns that she is an Inhuman and that her real name is Daisy Johnson. Meanwhile, Coulson restores a helicarrier and finds the Chitauri Scepter's location in Sokovia. He warns Maria Hill, who then alerts the Avengers. Perhaps united for the last time, in the spring of 2015, they attack Adra's very last base. There, Tony retrieves the scepter but is manipulated by Wanda, who shows him an apocalyptic vision. He sees all his Avenger friends dead and the Chitauri invading Earth again, all because of him, a vision that haunted him until his death. Tony and Bruce use the recovered scepter to create Ultron, an AI meant to help Tony protect Earth. But this AI turns against its creator and concludes that humanity simply has to disappear. It exiles itself to Sokovia and begins making a robot army. There, Wanda and Pietro join its fight to destroy Stark, and to carry out its plan, Ultron needs a perfect body. He arranges a meeting with Ulysses Klaue, a trafficker who has acquired a large amount of vibranium. The Avengers then try to stop him, but Wanda once again manipulates them, showing them their worst fear. Thor sees Ragnarok, Steve sees the end of the war with Peggy, and Natasha is back in the Red Room. All of these visions will come true, but it's especially Hulk who is going to go on a rampage. Out of control, he wreaks havoc in Johannesburg, and Tony is forced to activate the Veronica Protocol and deploy the Hulkbuster in Seoul. Dr. Ellen Cho, under the Mind Stone's control, creates a vibranium body. The Avengers recover it and integrate Tony Stark's AI, creating Jarvis Vision. The Mind Stone bearer can lift Mjolnir, which is impressive. The Avengers foil Ultron's plan and save Earth, but there are consequences. Is Sokovia reduced to ashes? Pietro gives his life to save. Hawkeye is evacuated on Coulson's helicarrier, while Hulk leaves the planet aboard a Quinjet. Ultron is destroyed by Vision, and while Tony steps back, Captain forms a new team of Avengers with new faces. Wanda, Vision, War Machine, and Falcon. During this time, Vision and Wanda become close and fall in love. In summer 2015, war erupts between the Inhumans and Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division. Led by Daisy's mother, it is stopped, Daisy asserts herself, and Terrigen crystals fall into the ocean, contaminating the ecosystem. The appearance of the Inhumans explodes worldwide, events never mentioned in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's probably here that the split between the two continuities begins, in San Francisco. Scott Lang, a former burglar recently released from prison, is hired by Hank Pym and his daughter Hope to stop Pym's student, Darren Cross. Someone is trying to copy his technology and sell it to the highest bidder, in this case Hydra. Hank then trains him to become the new Ant-Man, and he manages to defeat Yellow Jacket, Darren's alter ego. Under his suit, the man is crushed and sent into the quantum realm. But he's not the only one. Scott also went and returned, giving Hank hope he can find his wife. Months later, Frank Castle resurfaces and wipes out the New York mafias. After a confrontation with Daredevil, he is arrested and sent to prison, where he meets Fisk after trying to kill him. Fisk eventually arranges his escape, seeing the opportunity to easily eliminate the competition. Meanwhile, Elektra, Daredevil's ex-lover turned assassin, re-enters his life. Together, they face the Hand until Elektra is killed, then resurrected as Black Sky, the embodiment of death for the Hand. Luke Cage seeks peace in Harlem, but the Mafia finds him, and Misty Knight, and he defeats Harlem's true godfather. We learn he gained his powers from genetic experiments in prison in the 2000s, which helped him escape. His real identity, Carl Lucas, is revealed and he is sent to prison. The Civil War. In July 2016, neurosurgeon Stephen Strange suffers a devastating car accident that ruins his hands and changes his life. Meanwhile, Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division agents confront a new threat, Hive. The first Inhuman has returned to Earth by possessing Grant Ward's body, a powerful parasite able to control minds and build an Inhuman army. Danny Rand returned to New York in winter 2016. Iron Fist relinquishes guarding the Kunlun Gate to regain his billionaire status. But he isn't welcomed in the family business. With his girlfriend, Colin Wigg, he chooses to fight the Hand, which has taken over and corrupted his company. However, his absence let the Hand attack Kunlun. When he returns, he finds the mythical sanctuary gone, but 2016 mainly marks the final end of the Avengers. After a failed mission in Nigeria and the Sokovia fallout, public opinion turns against them. The Sokovia Accords, imposed by General Ross with the support of Tony Stark, are now aimed at controlling the superheroes. Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division, still operating in secret, tries to register the Inhumans under these accords. Lincoln Campbell, Daisy's boyfriend, sacrifices himself in space to kill Hive by blowing up a Quinjet. Grieving, Daisy leaves Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division and becomes the Vigilante Quake. After Chaka, Wakanda's king, is killed in a United Nations bombing, the Winter Soldier is blamed, and T'Challa, as Black Panther, seeks him. The Avengers split, some backing the Accords and others rejecting control. Tony even recruits a young Spider-Man to help him. The German airport clash leaves War Machine badly hurt and Steve's allies arrested. Sent to the Raft, a prison for superhumans, Tony then discovers that Steve knew Bucky had killed his parents. The revelation sparks a violent fight among the three men. And above all, the ultimate split of the Avengers. Behind all this is Helmut Zemo, a former soldier whose family perished in Sokovia. Unable to face the Avengers physically, he chose to destroy them from within. T'Challa, who discovers the truth about his involvement, decides to spare his life, and Zemo ends up in prison. Back at the Avengers headquarters, War Machine begins to regain the use of his legs thanks to Stark's exoskeletons. Tony gets a letter and phone from Steve, who says he'll return if needed. Stark discovers Steve's allies escape the Raft. In Wakanda, T'Challa offers Bucky refuge and proposes to cure his conditioning for good. Natasha, now a fugitive for helping Steve at the airport, uses her freedom to confront her past. She reunites with her sister Yelena, another Black Widow once controlled by Dreykov. At the Red Room's head, with their adoptive parents, Alexei, the Red Guardian, and Melina, they destroy the Red Room and confront the other widows. And Taskmaster, who turns out to be Dreykov's daughter, whom Natasha thought she had killed in Budapest. The widows are now scattered worldwide, while Natasha departs with Steve and Sam Wilson. They unite as the Secret Avengers, working covertly. In New York, the Defenders join forces to defeat the Hand. The organization used its final elixir to resurrect Elektra, now their ultimate weapon. The five supposedly immortal leaders meet in New York to extract more substances from a buried dragon's bones, endangering the city. The Defenders confront them and cause the explosion of the building that engulfs them. Matt and Elektra are then reported missing in the rubble. In the summer of 2016, with the death of Chaka and political instability in Wakanda, two enemies of Black Panther, Ulysses Klaue and Eric Killmonger, join forces. Killmonger, who has recovered the famous vibranium axe left in the past, returns to Wakanda. He reveals his lineage and claims the throne, but T'Challa loses a ritual jewel and nearly dies. Eric, now the new Black Panther, burns all the heart-shaped herbs so that no future king can receive the powers after him. He readies for World War by spreading Wakandan weapons, just as his father wished. But T'Challa comes back, takes back the throne, and kills his cousin. These events convince him to open Wakanda to the world, ironically fulfilling Killmonger's dream, but in his own way, peacefully in Universe 1005. In 2016 still, Wade Wilson, a former soldier turned mercenary, learns that he has terminal cancer. Desperate, he agrees to an experimental procedure related to the Weapon X program, which is supposed to awaken mutant genes, and the experiment works. Wade develops a regeneration factor that makes him almost immortal, but he comes out of it completely disfigured. Following torture by Ajax, the program's leader, Wade becomes Deadpool, sets out to find Ajax, and ultimately defeats him. Despite everything he has been through, he manages to reconnect with his fiancée, Vanessa, whom he had left so she wouldn't have to endure his fight against the disease. In fall 2016, young Peter Parker from 616, wearing a new suit from Stark, tries to prove himself in New York. While awaiting the Avengers call, he confronts Adrian Toomes, his crush Liz's father, who is now the Vulture. Using stolen Chitauri and Stark tech, Peter is punished by Tony and stops him from robbing. The convoy is transporting the last equipment from Stark Tower, which has been sold to a mysterious buyer. We'll later find out the buyer is Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Tony, now confident in his worth, calls the press to officially make Peter an Avenger. Only, the young Spidey refuses the offer, preferring to stay the friendly neighborhood Spider, so Tony uses this moment to propose to Pepper. Still in New York, Frank Castle, the Punisher, believes he has avenged his family after eliminating half the city's gangs. However, he discovers that everything was actually orchestrated by his former special unit, including his best friend, Billy Russo. At the forefront, in a violent frenzy, Frank eliminates the conspiracy and severely disfigures Russo, leaving him half dead and amnesiac. In Los Angeles, now a branch of the 616 Robbie Reyes, possessed by the spirit of vengeance, has become the new Ghost Rider. Here he meets Daisy Johnson. Distrustful of each other, they eventually cooperate when the threat from Imoro, Robbie's uncle, becomes too dangerous. Moro gains near godlike powers from the Darkhold, an ancient cursed grimoire that warps reality. Ida, an android made by S.H.I.E.L.D., then acquires the Darkhold. She uses it to launch the Life Model Decoy Project, perfect artificial copies of the agents one by one. The real team members are replaced, their minds trapped in a virtual reality. Framework, a world where Ada has won and rules the planet. After a tough battle to separate truth from illusion, the team escapes the framework. But with the Darkhold, Ada creates a human body with inhuman powers and becomes an uncontrollable threat. Ghost Rider returns to defeat her and takes her with him. 2017 starts with Stephen Strange. The former surgeon refuses to accept his fate after the accident and goes in search of a miracle cure. At Kamar-Taj, he meets the former Sorcerer Supreme, who agrees to train him to stop Caecilius, a former Kamar-Taj master. After joining Dormammu from the Dark Dimension, Caecilius destroys the New York and London sanctums and targets the Hong Kong sanctum. The Earth is now defenseless. With the Eye of Agamotto and the Time Stone, Strange traps Dormammu in an endless time loop. After endlessly repeating the same scene, Dormammu finally agrees to leave Earth. After the Ancient One dies, Strange becomes Sorcerer Supreme and Protector of Earth. Meanwhile, the Defenders each try to rebuild their lives. Jessica Jones, free from Kilgrave, tries to help her traumatized mother with uncontrollable powers. Trish, jealous of not being a hero like her best friend, uses performance-enhancing drugs and kills Jessica's mother. This sends her back into depression. Luke Cage is freed from prison by Foggy. Nelson eventually takes over Harlem and becomes its new crime boss. Convinced that he can protect him from the inside, Danny Rand, now the protector of Chinatown, fights for the title of Iron Fist against a former rival. But he eventually gives up the power to pass it on to Colin Wing, the new Iron Fist of New York. The end of 2017 also marks the return of Matt Murdock. Declared dead after the collapse against the Hand, he manages to escape prison and returns home, officially monitored by the FBI, but unofficially free to take control of organized crime again. From a secret room, he then manipulates Agent Benjamin Poindexter, an unstable veteran and sharpshooter. Actually, a fake Daredevil was created to damage Matt's reputation. After a long psychological and physical battle, Matt defeats Fisk again and warns he'll target his wife if Fisk acts. Oh, we forgot that one. Intended as Marvel Cinematic Universe canon, the Inhumans universe was dropped after Fox and the Mutants were acquired. But be careful, I don't mean the Inhumans from Agents of Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division. I'm referring to the Inhuman royal family, who rule from Attilan on the moon. Until the day when the balance shifts. When Maximus, Black Bolt's brother, stages a coup, Black Bolt, Medusa, Karnak, Gorgon, Crystal, and Triton are forced to flee and end up scattered on Earth. Maximus secretly plans a forced terragenesis to build a loyal Inhuman army. The royal family reunites and must destroy Attilan to stop him from executing his plan. Without mentioning the Inhumans, they are now condemned to live among humans on Earth. In fall 2017, Thor returns to Asgard and uncovers Loki's deception. They find their father in Tonsberg, where he dies with them. His death frees Ella from exile, who is far stronger than Thor and Loki. They destroy Mjolnir, break resistance, and take Asgard. Thor is then thrown onto Saga, a gladiator planet ruled by the Grandmaster, one of the Elders, like the Collector. He finds Hulk, now the arena champion, and Loki, already favored by the Tyrant. With the help of Valkyrie, Korg, and Mick, they return to Asgard. Thor then realizes that the only way to defeat Ella is to trigger Ragnarok by awakening Surtur, destroying Asgard but saving his people. The survivors board a ship heading for Earth, but are intercepted by a gigantic vessel, Thanos' ship. At the beginning of 2018, Coulson and his team are thrown into the year 2091, in a future where Earth has been destroyed. There, they discover that in this timeline, Daisy Johnson is accused of having shattered the planet. After many trials, they return to 2018 to break the loop, but at great cost. That spring, while still under house arrest, Scott Lang receives visions from Janet. Meanwhile, Hope as the Wasp and Hank Pym build a machine to access the quantum realm and contact Scott. Together, they manage to find Janet, who has been exiled for decades and deeply affected by her time with Kang, the time-traveling and multiversal traveler. Meanwhile, Bill Foster helps Avastar, or Ghost, stabilize her unstable molecules with quantum energy. After a confrontation around Pym's lab, Janet apparently uses new abilities that we've never seen again to relieve Ghost. Although she can't fully cure her, Bucky is finally free from his conditioning. Wakandans now refer to him as the White Wolf in the United States. Frank Castle ignores a young woman's advice to change and continues his violent crusade, ultimately killing Rousseau for good. Jessica Jones Season 3 shows Trish Walker, strengthened by her new powers, who crosses By killing the criminals she encounters, Jessica has no choice but to stop her and put her in prison. She lost everything, but despite it all, she decides to stay in New York, and that's where we stop this week. Yes, the Multiverse Saga's epic conclusion happens in part 3 of this video series. But that's not all. Next week, same day and time, we'll discuss the origins of the multiverse, post-Snap and the launch of all Disney's series.